guys, it's great to see you and welcome to our Psalms Summer Devotions. You see, over the next couple of weeks during the school holidays, we're going to be looking at some Psalms. Now, Psalms are songs given by God to help us love Him and follow Jesus. And so each week over the next month, we're going to be looking at one together. And it's actually going to be the same one that your mums and dads are going to be looking at as adults. So let's take a look at our first psalm. And this week, we're looking at Psalm 45. Now, I wonder, what makes you get excited? You know, what really gets you going? Is it the thought of going on holiday? Maybe it's a big sports match that you've got coming. Maybe it's seeing your friends at a party. Well, in the psalm we're looking at today, the psalmist, now that's the author, the person that wrote it, the psalmist is really excited. And he's really excited about a wedding. But rather than being excited about the things we might get excited about at a wedding, the psalmist is really excited about the groom, because the person getting married is his king. Now, the psalmist here is writing about the king and wanting us all to see how incredible and amazing the king is. He wants us to see that the king is victorious and eternal. When you read the psalm, you'll see he introduces us to the king in verse 2 and then goes on to list all of these things about how incredible the king is. We read he's excellent and he's been blessed by God. We read he pursues truth and justice and humility. All his enemies will fall beneath his feet. In fact, we read all the nations will fall beneath his feet. His throne will last eternally. God has set him above all others. He is splendid and wealthy and has a fitting companion. There is so much that the psalmist is excited about the king. Now, the psalmist is also excited about the king's bride. Now, remember, he's describing a wedding. Well, he also introduces us to the king's bride. And she too is beautiful. And she's a fitting match for the king. And she is reminded that she is now united to this wonderful king. All of the ways that she is described point us to the fact that she is a fitting match for this king. This wonderful and glorious king. Now, when the psalmist was writing, originally he was writing about a real king of the time. But as we look at these things, they can only be fully true of one person. They can only be fully true of Jesus, God's king. God's king who was perfectly just. God's king who was chosen by God and blessed by him. God's king who will rule forever. And God's king who all people will bow down before. Now the psalmist finishes with his response to this king. And he says that he wants to be telling all people everywhere of how great the king is. He also shows us the response of everybody else and shows us that all the nations will be praising this king forever. Now, in this psalm, we see Jesus as God's glorious and victorious eternal king.